Hello. Hey. Hello. Oh, thank you. Hey everyone. Brilliant. Hey. Great. So hello and welcome to Tana Eastbourne's live making workshop. My name is Amy and this workshop is part of the #The Postal Exchange series. Oh, it's great to see all of you. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. So the #Postal Exchange series is taking place over August and September and is a collaboration between myself and fellow artist Rachel McGivern, and is part of the Tana Eastbourne's #Makeshift Studio. So Rachel and I have been taking it in turns to post each other parcels of everyday objects, some of which you might have in your own homes, and these objects have been triggering material and process sort of explorations. So these are shared in a series of fortnightly live making workshops, of which this is the fourth and final one. So thank you very much for tuning in. Great. So last time Rachel explored a slinky toy, a plastic bath sponge and a bag of sweets in a brilliant workshop, which I definitely recommend checking out on this Instagram account, which is at hello_Tana, Tana Eastbourne's website and Facebook. And in this workshop I'll be exploring these intriguing objects. So we've got a sea sponge, we've got a couple of photographs cut out from magazines of natural landscapes. We've got a couple of bits of onion skin, this side's better, onion skin and garlic skin, and we have got a packet of seeds. So I'll be exploring these objects in this workshop, and they've sort of inspired me to think about, like, where do they come from? They've made me think about the natural world. I've been exploring sort of their smell and what they feel like, so their textures, and I've been going on my own walks to try and find other objects, other natural forms. So today we'll be exploring collecting, arranging and making seed bombs. So you're very welcome to join me today in making along, or feel free to watch and hopefully be inspired. Okay, so before we start making, just a few gentle reminders. Everyone is welcome to take part, but please, if you're a child, ask an adult to work with you and follow any safety making tips. Please do ask permission before you borrow things or when you choose extra materials, which we will be doing today. So please don't choose anything that's sharp, precious or breakable. And feel free to use the comments, which you have been doing brilliantly. If you have any questions or want to share any ideas, if you're watching the recorded version, feel free to pause at different stages if that's helpful. And there'll be 3 main bits to the workshop. So the first activity we're going to do is collecting. So you may have done this stage already, but if not, no worries, I'll go through it now. So for our collections, we are going to need, put them to one side, we are going to need a container of some sort. So I've got an egg box, just empty and clean, or you could go for something like a bit of packaging or a Tupperware plastic container. You just need a kind of container of some sort. And you'll need a place in which you can explore and select small objects. Hello for joining us. As my Wi-Fi doesn't extend outside, I've done this bit already, but if you want to, or if it's a possibility, feel free to take your phone or device out and about. So with our container and your adult, if you're a child, find a space either inside, like the kitchen, or outside. You might live near a park or a meadow or a beach, or have access to a garden or like a balcony. I've been to my local park and my kitchen to have a bit of an explore. So once you're there, have a look around and choose small objects sensitively. What you find depends on where you are, so we might all have very different things. And of course the time of the year in which you're doing this activity. So some ideas of things you could collect. Show you this little collection we've got on the go. So you could collect leaves, these are all at different stages of drying. You could collect pebbles or shells if they're available to you and you're by the coast. A sea sponge inspired by the one Rachel sent me in the post. This is a really great time of the year for looking around and seeing what things have fallen from trees. So you've got some conkers. I think this one's been opened by a squirrel. We've also got a little bit of chalk here. Some other ideas of things you could collect, also from the park and out and about. Got an acorn, a really great bit of mossy bark. Oh, this is a pine cone, sorry. Another little cone here. And we've got other things that have fallen from trees, and a little bunch of dried flowers, little bits of twigs, a little bit of a fern. So have a look around and see what's available. I've also been exploring the kitchen. So if you're not out and about today, you could quite easily make a collection out of a container and things you find in your kitchen. So we've got some herbs, some rosemary, we've got some spices, some turmeric. We have got some onion skins, like Rachel sent in the post, some used up ground coffee. It's quite good to save and dry out. We've got some curry leaves, some rose petals, some dried tea, and some peppercorns, if you can see them. We've also got a selection of dried flowers and bits and bobs. So and of course, if you have access to any pictures of nature that you can cut out from magazines or postcards, you're very welcome to add them to your collection too. So, just when you're out and about, please be mindful to pick things sensitively. So avoid grabbing loads of a living plant. It's probably best to avoid berries and mushrooms because you never know. And just avoid anything that's quite tricky to get to. So if in doubt and you're a child, ask your adult. So I tend to collect things that have fallen naturally or won't be too messed, and give them a little wash when you're at home, and make sure you clean your hands too. So I'll be using a range of things in the activities today, but please don't feel like you need masses of things. So once you have your pieces, you can arrange them in your containers. Egg boxes are really good because I've already got the containers sort of sorted out for you. But if you have a box and would like to create your own containers, I'm just going to show you quickly an option. So this is just a shoebox and bits of slotted cardboard to create a little shelf, and kind of zigzag of cardboard, and you can use a plastic container to keep any delicate bits as well. So however big or small your collection ends up being is completely up to you. We've got a really good comment that says so many natural things in the kitchen cupboard, which is true, because I just you just don't realise when you're using them for cooking, actually, by like looking at them in a different way is really, really cool. So you could, if you wanted to, you could also label your objects, or create a little system, or different sort of categories for your collection, so however you arrange them within your boxes is completely up to you. So once you have your collection or the beginnings of one, there are loads of things you could do with it. So I'm going to go through a few today, but the making guide, which you can download off of Town at Eastbourne's website, has a few more, and please feel free, if you've got any ideas, to use the comment section if you'd like to share them with us. So the first activity I'm going to suggest we do is a sticky drawing. So for this we're going to need a bit of space, so I'm just going to put my collections to one side, but we'll be using them. Going to need a little bit of space. We are going to need a bit of cardboard. It can be any size, any shape. This is just a square, which is about the size of my head. Bit of cardboard, a bit of sticky back plastic, so the stuff that you usually cover books, school books with, and this needs to be cut just a little bit bigger than your piece of card. So this is about like 1.5 centimeters bigger. So going to need that. If you don't have a bit of sticky back plastic, you could use like the lint rollers that you use to get objects, dirt off of your clothes. You could also use something like that, or double-sided tape, or like those little sticky glue dots could also be quite helpful. And if you don't have sticky things, a sticky kind of surface, that's totally fine as well. So we've got card, sticky back plastic, and some masking tape. So the first thing, and of course our nature collections. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mount the sticky back plastic onto the card. This, if you have an extra pair of hands, that's great, because this bit can be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to put the sticky back plastic down, backing, so the papery side, down onto the table, and the shiny side facing upwards, and our piece of cardboard just placed in the middle on top of it. Everyone can see that. Okay, and because I've only got one pair of hands, I'm just gonna tear off a few strips of masking tape, the same length as each of the sides. So I'm just gonna prepare that a little bit in advance. Okay, great. So we are going to gently peel away the sticky section of our sticky back plastic, so the stickiness isn't touching the cardboard. So this is the opposite way you would usually use something like this. And I'm going to use my masking tape. This is when it gets a little bit fiddly. I'm going to use my masking tape, one of the strips, just to tack it down so it sticks onto the cardboard. So we've got one side there, and then I'm going to repeat the same for the other 3 sides. So we're just peeling away the sticky back plastic. And the final side is this one. Okay, great. Great, so we've got it masked onto the back of our cardboard, and then the front of our cardboard we're just going to peel away. Just going to peel away the backing, so you have one very shiny, very sticky surface of the front of our drawing collage. So with this, we are going to start arranging bits of our nature collection onto the sticky surface. So it depends on what's in your collection. I think I'll start off with a box with all of our indoor natural things from the kitchen cupboard. And I'm going to go ahead and start maybe placing things onto the surface. So if you don't like where things go, you can just sort of peel it off again. It might be a little bit more difficult for things like paper or more delicate objects. And I'm a fan of just sort of arranging things onto the surface and seeing where they go. Maybe I'll start off in the middle for this one. But if you want to plan out a design first, you're very welcome to. And you can have a bit of an experiment. So I've got this oxalis, which I think is going dormant. So I'm just going to use its petals in this collage and hopefully extend its life. So I think I'm just going to continue, maybe use some of the onion skins. And if you don't like what you've done, you can always just peel it off just as easily. Maybe using some of the white onion skins, breaking things up. If you've got any images of natural things that you'd like to stick on as well, you can also cut them up, stick them on. And I think like the beauty of maybe this way of arranging and figuring out an image is that if you really don't like it, you could just take it off. Or if you've enjoyed it enough, like I've got some behind me, I think if I've enjoyed them enough and now I'm gonna take them off and rearrange, and maybe some objects go back in your collection, maybe you bring out a few different ones. I think I might start using some of the turmeric to add a bit more colour. Brilliant. And maybe some of the rose petals. We've got a great comment that says it must smell amazing. It does smell quite good, and it's another way of sort of extending sort of the life of your natural objects maybe. And it picks up on quite a lot of detail as well. So I was experimenting the other day with this piece of moss and just kind of like sticking it to the surface. And a lot of little bits of moss are coming off as I kind of press it onto the surface of the sticky back plastic. So I'm a big fan of how it sort of highlights these tiny details that you might not ordinarily see. So I think I'm gonna carry on with this maybe later and show you a different activity you could do if you're interested, but I definitely recommend trying this out if you have the chance to. So the next activity I'm going to show you might be more appropriate if you have something like more like 3D objects that are quite difficult to stick to your sticky back plastic. So the second thing we are going to look at is making a mini landscape. Oh, I've got some great comments that says, yeah, the onion skins, quite an interesting material, onion skins, once you kind of start breaking it down. Brilliant. So for our second activity, we are going to make a mini landscape or a small world. So we're going to need, for this one, we're going to need our nature collections again, and we are going to need an empty container. Ah, that's great. That's a really great suggestion. So we've got something that says, would be interesting to cut holes or shapes in the cardboard to let light through as well. Definitely. And maybe like using stencils as well might be quite good to get certain shapes or patterns. Brilliant. Thanks for your comments. Okay, so for our small world, we are going to need another container, like an empty, clean container. This is the top of a shoebox. I found that shallow containers work quite well, but if you've got, you can work with something a lot smaller, maybe half of a cardboard box or something. So this is the top of a shoebox for our small world, and we're going to need quite a lot of loose material. So this could be soil, or it could be sand, or it can be grains, or it could be like dry rice, spices, or dried petals, or sort of dried herbs. But we're going to need quite a lot of it. So first thing we're going to do with that, I've got some dried rice with a few petals in it. I'm going to fill our container with our grainy substance, whatever you got. Great. And just arrange your grains however you like. I've also got some porridge oats, which I might add to the mix, make a little mound of porridge oats. And also might also bring in our rosemary and our herbs. Maybe making a little pathway out of that. Great, so we've filled our container with lots of grains, and this is sort of like the setting for our mini landscape. So having a look at your objects that you have in your nature collections, it's now completely up to you, and it's a matter of just arranging them however you like. So I think I might start off with maybe a backdrop. So I've got some pictures inspired by the ones Rachel sent in the post of sort of natural forms, and I might just use the grains to kind of create a bit of a sticking point for them. I've got some actual bark which I might use as well. Hey, if you're joining us, we're just making our small worlds, our mini landscapes. Might use this moss and sort of repurpose it in the corner. Maybe a pebble. And again, a bit like the sticky drawings, you can rearrange it, like you've made it, so you can definitely rearrange it and move things around if you're playing with it. It's just sort of a format in which you can be really flexible within. So we've got the beginnings of kind of a small world with lots of different sensory elements. And the thing I love the most about like playing with grains and spices and herbs is that it's so like another comment said earlier, it's so like the smell of it and sort of the feeling on your hands is really, really lovely to connect with natural sort of objects like that. So you could think about scale, so a kind of tiny twig could become an archway, or sort of a piece of bark could become another landscape within itself. So we've got our tiny mini landscape on the go. You could also play with photography, or maybe adding toys or different things within it. Great. And again, I think this is something that I might continue with, continue adding to. And the last thing I'm going to show you, the last activity that we're going to do with our nature collections is we are going to make some seed bombs. So I'm going to put this to one side, and I'm going to put our nature collections to one side, and for our seed bombs, which is the last activity we're going to do, we are going to need some paper. So this can be scraps of paper, it can be bits of recycled bits, bits that you no longer need. So we're going to need some of this. I've just got a handful of it, but if you want any more, you could definitely definitely sort of play with the proportions. Amazing. We've just got some great comments which I'm going to read out. So we've got one about our mini world that says you could make a seaside world with shells and seaweed, definitely. And we've got, oh yeah, so these have quite a good sort of life within them, so they might take a little bit of time to activate, and just have them around. It's quite nice bringing the outside into your interior space, definitely. Oh, thanks for your comments. So for our seed bombs, which is inspired actually, Rachel sent in the post a packet of seeds. So for our seed bombs, we are going to need scraps of paper, so recycling bits. This is a bit of packaging that I've got. We're going to need a packet of seeds. These are, their sowing time is August to October, so I was quite keen to sort of make these bombs and plant them fairly soon. I've also got another packet of seeds called poached eggs, which I thought was quite funny. Again, their sowing time is September to October. So just be mindful of when your seeds prefer to grow. These ones are sort of around now. So we're going to need a sieve, and we're going to need 2 bowls. So they don't have to be matching, but just 2 bowls. And we are going to need a little bit of water as well. So to get started with making our seed bombs, we are going to, with one of our bowls, I'll just pop that to one side. With one of our bowls, we are going to pop all of our paper in, maybe ripping up a little bit so you've got a good mix of paper. So maybe if you've got a shredder, you could shred up your paper beforehand, but I'm just gonna rip it up myself. This is just normal printer paper and some sugar paper, which is left over from another activity. So we're just ripping up bits of paper. Okay, I think that's good. And we're going to cover all of that paper with some water. So this process is a little bit like the paper clay process that Rachel took us through in a previous workshop last season, which I definitely recommend checking out if you want to. So again, we're using our hands to rip up these bits of soaking paper. Might add a few more bits in. Make sure all the paper's soaked and absorbing as much water as possible. If you have a blender, you might think, oh yeah, could speed up this process, but I think I'm just going to carry on using my hands to kind of break up all of the paper so it becomes sort of a mush. If you are doing this by hand, it takes quite a long time. So I think I'm going to skip ahead, and if that's okay, use a batch that I have had soaking for a little bit longer. So if you started making along in this live making workshop, it might take a little bit more time to get through this stage, but don't worry, I'll just skip ahead so you can see what to do next. So I'm going to put this batch to one side, bring in our other bowl. And this is a batch that I made yesterday, so it's been soaking for a bit longer, and its consistency is a little bit like mushy porridge. And we're going to use our sieve on top of our other bowl. Just going to place it on top, and we're going to sieve as much water out, putting our mush paper pulp in our sieve and pressing it down, squeezing as much water out as possible. Don't worry if you don't get it all, because it will dry out, but it's good to get as much out as possible. You can also use a tea towel, but I'm just going to do it by hand. So pressing down the paper pulp and squeezing it. Cool. I think I'll get started with this amount first. So you kind of want it to be like crumbly porridge oats at this point. And the next step we're going to do is we're going to sprinkle our seeds into our paper mush. So you can transfer it into another bowl. I'm just going to do it straight into the sieve and show you. That's good noise. Okay, so we've got our paper mush, and I'm going to use the seeds that Rachel sent me in the post, and I'm just going to sprinkle a few of them into our pulp. They're quite lovely seeds. I'll show you the shape. They look like little wiggly worm shapes. So I'm going to pop them in. I'm also going to use a few of the poached egg seeds. If you're making your own seed mix, just take note of when their sowing time is, so when they prefer to grow. These also prefer to grow in autumn, so I think they're a good match. Okay, and we're just going to mix the seeds in to our pulp, and using our hands, I'm going to grab a little bit, squeezing out a bit more water, making sure the seeds are nice and stuck in, and we're just going to form them into little ball shapes. So these are sort of like golf ball size, ping pong, table tennis ball size. And we've got one seed bomb here. You could also, if you wanted to, and if you had any little cookie cutters or any silicone moulds, you could also press them into that. So I'll show you, I've got a little flower mould. I'm going to press it into, just making sure any seeds you've got are fully mixed in to your paper pulp. And if you're not really sure, or if you feel like, oh, this might not have very many, you're always welcome to like stick a few more seeds onto the surface, just making sure that they're embedded in. So it's up to you what kind of shape or size you want your seed bombs to be. I'm going to carry on making with this set, but I'll show you as well another set that's been drying for over a week now. So some other ideas, if you didn't want to make it into a ball shape, this is a batch from last week. Yes, so a question, that's a really, really good question. We've got a question in the comments that says, will they dry really hard? And this is quite hard. Can you hear that? So it's quite a solid but lightweight seed bomb. We've got another comment that says they'd be great for presents, definitely. Yeah, so drying time. So I found that they dry out, this is a bit of paper, a flat one. I found that they take about 2 days to dry out, but it's quite sunny at the moment, so maybe a little bit less than that. And I have found that you can store them in an airtight container once they're dry for up to 6 months. So if your sowing time for the seeds that you've chosen isn't like optimum right now, you can definitely keep them in a container. And you can play around with different shapes. And here's a duck. And the really lovely thing, like that brilliant comment that said you should give them as presents, the really lovely thing I like about them is that you can also keep them in your pocket. So when you go out and about for a little walk, you can just find a good spot and and plant them. Just when you're out and about finding spots for your seed bombs, just make sure that, just be aware if it's on anyone's property, and maybe if you'd like to plant one somewhere and like your neighbour's garden and you know them, maybe just give it to them as a present rather than throwing it over the fence, but that's up to you. Yeah, and the colours of your pulp can change, definitely, so you can use different coloured paper to get different pulp on the go. I will show you one because it's been quite hot here recently. One of mine started sprouting a couple of days ago, so I just popped it in a bit of soil, and this is how it's looking at the moment. So hopefully in a couple of days' time we'll have some flowers to show. Great, so I'm going to continue making with this one and just finish off the seed bombs and maybe give them away as presents, and plant them. But if you've got any comments or questions, feel free to use the comment section. We'd love to see how yours turn out if you're making along today, if you've been making with your nature collections or if you started one, and whatever direction you take yours in, feel free to share it with us, tagging us at hello_towner and using the hashtag makeshiftstudio and the hashtag the postal exchange. So just a gentle reminder, before sharing photos of anyone, just ask their permission. And if you've missed anything from today, or any of the previous workshops, there are downloadable making guides. Just follow the link in at hello_towner in the bio. So feel free to check out any of our live previous baking workshops, or share them with anyone you think might be interested. So thank you so much for taking part, and a massive thank you from me, Rachel, and the Towner team for being part of hashtag Makeshift Studio. It's been an absolute joy being able to make things with you, and I hope to see you all again soon. Cool, thank you. Thanks. Bye everyone.